Good afternoon. In a few minutes, we are going to start our program, our webinar. Sit tight.
Far away, ricochet, take your aim. Far away. Shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. You shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. I am titanium. Stone heart, machine gun, fire at the ones who run. Stone heart has a bulletproof glass. Shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. You shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium. You shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium.
Countdown begins, and we are going to start our webinar on the perks of being special rights and privileges of persons with disabilities.
You are muted.
You're muted, Tita.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Are you aware that of the 92.1 million household population in the country, 1.44 million persons or 1.57% had disability based on the 2010 Census of Population and Housing? An amazing good afternoon to everyone. I will be your host of this very timely webinar as we celebrate PWD Week. We are going to learn more on the perks of being special, the rights and privileges of persons with disabilities, as sometimes referred to as functional difficulty, as a replacement for the word disability at oftentimes. So, kindly sit back, keep yourself on mute, and enjoy this fruitful webinar. We will now have the invocation, followed by the pambansang awit through audiovisual recording.
Turuan mo akong maging bukas palad. Turuan mo akong maglingkod sa iyo, na magbigay ng ayon sa nararapat. pag-ibag ang di inaalintanan, mga hirap na dinaranas sa tuwing ay magsumikap na hindi humahanap ng kapalit na kaginhawaan na di naghihintay kundi ang aking mabati na ang loob mo siyang sinusundan. Turuan mo akong maging bukas palad. Turuan mo akong maglingkod sa iyo, na magbigay ng ayon sa nararapat, na walang hinihintay mula sa'yo.
Bayang magiliw, pelas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyatan ng magiging, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisingin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bakaw, may nilagang tulad namin sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisag ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di madidinig. Lupa ng araw ng walhati pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
To give our welcome remarks is a beautiful mother inside and out. She's one of the movers and shakers of Reach Center and the lovely spouse of Rotary International District 3860, past District Governor Joseph Michael Espina. Please give her a round of virtual applause, the school directress of Reach, Miss Sandra Espina.
Attorney Burns, our speaker for this webinar, and to all our viewers, good afternoon to all of you. The Parents Reach Foundation, which administers the Reach Center in partnership with the Rotary Club of Cebu Fente, are proud to present to you this webinar on the perks of being special, the rights and privileges of persons with disabilities. Reach Center has been in existence for the past 20 years. A group of special parents established the Parents Reach Foundation Incorporated, a non-stock, non-profit organization in 2001. And with the support of the Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente, Reach has grown to be the institution it was envisioned to be. It has been our joint advocacy to help special families of children with autism. Reach has now established 2 centers, one in Cebu and the other one in Mandawi City, and has been blessed in spite of this pandemic to reach out to our special families by conducting virtual webinars such as this. We are fortunate to have with us as our guest speaker this afternoon, no less than the president of the Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente, who is a lawyer and has committed himself to our advocacy on autism with persons with disabilities. The Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente has once again shared their support to this advocacy by hosting this webinar and reaching out to participants from their respective barangays, schools, PWD organizations, government agencies, business, and other interested organizations. Persons with disabilities must be afforded with their equal rights in society despite their disabilities. We hope that this webinar will enlighten our participants on the rights and privileges of PWDs. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you, and may we have a fruitful discussion during the open forum. Thank you.
The life-changing story of the Parents Reach Foundation Incorporated and Reach Center. When parents think of sending their children to school, they think about selecting what your child's strengths and needs are, physically, psychologically, and mentally, and to look for a school which can effectively match these from an array of schools to choose from. But what about parents who have children with autism? Their choices are so limited. So when they do find that one special school, they are grateful for the assurance of the education of their children. And they did find that one school. However, on September 2000, one of the foremost special schools in Cebu decided to close its doors to special children. In hindsight, the incident became the catalyst for a handful of parents to move and take matters into their own hands to resolve and address the dire situation. It was only on May 2001 when the Parents Reach Foundation Incorporated, PRFI, was formed and registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission with an initial membership of 6 parents and professionals. By July of 2001, an initial batch of 6 children, mostly the children of the foundation members, became the first students at the newly opened Reach Center. The center was just a one-room facility, lent rent-free by Espina Perez Espina Realty Corporation, of one of the founding families. It was also during this time when support from the Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente, RCCF, was provided to Reach Center during those crucial early days of its existence. More and more, and through the support of its sponsors and Rotary, Reach Center became known as one of the foremost special education centers in Cebu. More teachers and therapists were being trained regularly to cater to the training needs of the special families. In 2003, PRFI has the opportunity to purchase a 900 square meter lot located in Tingo, Mandaue City, hopefully for the expansion of the center and to cater to the needs of special families in the north of Cebu. By 2005, the funding was secured and was able to complete the new Reach Center in Mandaue City. Meanwhile, RCCF and several partner Rotary clubs in Cebu, Korea, Japan, Australia, and Taiwan, through the matching grants program of Rotary, were able to provide more facilities. In 2009, another matching grant project was implemented with other Rotary clubs in Cebu and Taiwan for the construction of the aqua therapy pool. This facility was an important requirement to address the gross motor and learning skills of special children. It was in 2011 that another opportunity for the purchase of a lot in Guadalupe came about. This was to be the future home of Reach Center Maine. In 2017, through the Vocational Training Team VTT program of Rotary, the Reach Center directress and some parents were sent to the U.S. to train at the University of North Carolina on the treatment and education of autistic and related communication handicapped children, or TEACH program. In Cebu, through RCCF, the trainings were shared to DepEd teachers, barangay health workers, special education students, and therapists. Then a new Reach Mandawi branch was built in 2020. The new Reach Center in Guadalupe will be completed this year, 2021. Reach Center, a continuing saga of resilience and perseverance in the face of adversity. Reach is truly more than just a vision, it is a cause.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Sandra Espina, for that heartwarming welcome remarks. And now, let us move on to the much awaited part of our program. Allow me to introduce our guest speaker.
Our distinguished guest speaker has 13 years of combined professional and meaningful experience in the field of business, law, and academia. He is a founding partner of the Amago and Obnimaga Miral Law Offices, a loose partnership engaged in general legal practice. He started his law practice in 2012 at the Cebu branch of Accra Law and spent one productive year with the corporate and special projects and taxation departments of Accra Law head office. He obtained his degree in Bachelor of Science in Accountancy from the University of San Carlos School of Business and Economics in 2007, where he graduated magna cum laude and earned a distinction of the Outstanding Graduate. Fresh from graduation and without the benefit of a formal review, he took and passed the May 2007 CPA board examination. He immediately went to law school and completed his Bachelor of Laws at the University of San Carlos School of Law and Governance in March 2011, while teaching in the accountancy department of the same university. He took and passed the exacting standards of the 2011 bar examinations through self-review. He provides legal advice and guidance in various referrals from local and international clients, specifically in the field of corporate law, taxation, labor, immigration, intellectual property, and other allied commercial laws. He holds the position of COO, Corporate Secretary, and/or Director in various corporations and deals with clients from varied industries like business process outsourcing, financial technology, banking, dive shop, hotel, hospital and medical services, advertising, cooperative, logistics, custom brokerage, maritime, construction, and real estate. He is also a professor at the University of San Carlos School of Law, where he teaches commercial laws and taxation subjects. For almost a decade, he has been working closely with MDS Accounting Services in the conduct of year-end and interim audit of various clients, as well as in the provision of management advisory services. He used to be a faculty member and CPA review guest lecturer of the Accountancy Department of the University of San Carlos School of Business and Economics. Significantly, he is a technical consultant to various local government units including Mandaue City and Municipality of Liloan in the fields of local government finance, taxation, and COA matters. He's a lifetime member of the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants Cebu Chapter and the Director of the Association of the Certified Public Accountants in Public Practice Cebu Chapter and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines Cebu City, where he sits as the Director. He was once a district legal advisor for the Rotary International District 3860. He has garnered several recognitions from the Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente, twice as Outstanding Rotarian of the Year, Outstanding Director, and New Rotarian. He was hailed as the most outstanding secretary for Area 1 District 3860 Rotary International. He is the current president of Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente, where his main thrusts are focused on autism and breast cancer, along with other advocacies of the club. To talk about the rights and privileges of persons with disabilities, it is my distinct honor to introduce our guest speaker, Attorney Bernardino T. Amago IV. Let us give him a warm virtual applause.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for your attendance to this worthwhile webinar on the perks of being special, the rights and privileges of persons with disabilities. Now, this may appear very legalistic in approach, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible, as relatable to all of us. Although there may be an international instrument in relation to the rights and privileges of persons with disabilities, there is in fact a United Nations Convention on the rights of persons with disabilities. The focus of this afternoon's discussion will be on the Magna Carta for persons with disabilities. Now, that law of ours has undergone several amendments by RA 9442, which expanded the benefits to include the 20% discount granted to PWDs, as well as the inclusion of prohibited acts such as public ridicule and vilification of persons with disabilities. Then you have RA number 10070, which expanded as well which created, the Office of the Persons with Disabilities Affairs in the LGUs concerned. And that's why probably if you're familiar with your local government unit structure, you will see a PDAO in those LGUs. That is pursuant to the mandate of RA 10070. RA 10524 is the one which expanded the positions available to our PWDs in terms of employment. Then you have RA 10754, which further expanded the privileges granted to PWDs. Aside from the 20% discount, it is likewise clarified that they are also exempted from value added tax. Then this RA 11228, which is the recent of all the laws affecting the PWDs, sometime in 2019, this was passed. It gave an automatic PhilHealth coverage to our PWDs. There is already an implementing rules and regulation issued by the PhilHealth in relation to this law. And we will discuss some of these this afternoon. Now, there are about 7 aspects of the entire lifestyle of a PWD for which it is benefited in relation to the Magna Carta for disabled persons. But it is best that we understand how disabled person is defined under the law. They are referring to those persons suffering from restriction or has different abilities as a result of a mental, physical, or sensory impairment to perform an activity in a manner or within the range considered normal for a human being. But you will see that in some of the instruments relating to PWDs, there is an emphasis on the term long-term impairment. It is not just an impairment that may be temporary because you were caught in an accident. It has to be long-term for you to be considered a disabled person and for you to be entitled to the privileges under the law. Now, how is impairment defined under the law as well? Well, there is a definition provided in the implementing rules and regulation, and it refers to the loss, diminution, or aberration of psychological, physiological, or anatomical structure or function. And this is the reason why, if you're suffering from certain illnesses like cancer or diabetes or any other physical limitations or any illness that gives you or that sort of prevents you from doing your normal function as an individual, you may be qualified to register yourself as a PWD. Because we know that whenever you are sick, there is usually a diminution of your anatomical function, okay, or even your physiological function. So it is now recognized that people with serious illnesses are likewise considered PWDs. But then you have to register with your local government unit to be recognized as such. So now let's proceed to the specific benefits granted to persons with disability, starting with employment. The law is very specific that there ought to be an equal opportunity for employment granted to PWDs. Now, there are several provisions, especially in the implementing rules and regulations, which sort of echoes this particular right and privilege to PWDs. So it is stated that there should be no discrimination in employment in relation to PWDs. So no individual or entity, whether public or private, shall discriminate against a qualified disabled person by reason of his disability. And for it to constitute discrimination, that includes limiting or segregating or classifying disabled person who is applying for a job. When you give a lower compensation or salary or wage or other forms of remuneration to a qualified disabled employee by reason of his disability, or when you favor a non-disabled employee over a qualified disabled employee with respect to promotion on account of the latter's disability. There could be other instances, and if you have any questions later on, we may be able to discuss them. But those are just some of the examples which connote discrimination and may be considered a violation of the equal opportunity principle with regard to this law. Now, it is likewise, as I mentioned a while ago, there was an amendment to RA 7277, or the Magna Carta for PWDs, and what used to be a reservation of position in government agencies that does social services, it's been expanded already to 1% of regular and non-regular positions in all government agencies. So that means that there is now more opportunities for employment in government offices for PWDs. Now, you may be wondering, how about private entities? Of course, the government cannot force our private companies or private businesses to employ PWDs, but they are highly encouraged. And if ever they do employ PWDs, they will be entitled to incentives for as employers. It can include 25% additional deduction from income tax in relation to the salaries or wages that you give to your PWD employees. And if ever you decided to improve your facilities, not merely as compliance to the accessibility law, but just to give a convenient and more conducive atmosphere of employment for our PWDs, you may be entitled as well to an additional exemption equivalent to 50% of the cost of repairs and maintenance. Again, it must be emphasized that this is not just an improvement or a construction in compliance with accessibility laws. And what do I mean by that? You putting a ramp, you putting some rails to comply with the provisions of the accessibility law, that will not entitle you to additional 50% deduction. This must be over and above what is required under the law. So you specifically providing a clinic for PWDs for in case they have rehabilitation activities, that type of improvement may entitle you to additional 50%. So aside from the cost of your improvement, you get 50% more for your deduction in relation to your income tax. Now, if ever there really is no available employment for PWDs in certain LGUs, which I think is rather impossible at this time, there ought to be available opportunities for PWDs. The government is mandated to provide sheltered employment, in which case the government will have to provide for certain workshops for PWDs and give them training to improve their skills and they will also be required to ensure that there is a good working atmosphere and efficient production available to PWDs. Now, the Department of Labor and Employment, as well as the SWD, shall endeavor to set up these sheltered workshops in all regions of the country in consultation and coordination with existing NGOs and people's organizations which provide parallel services to disabled persons. So should you have certain advocacies that relate to PWDs, you may work in the effort of providing sheltered workshops for them. Now, PWDs may also qualify for apprenticeship or learner, granted that their handicap should not be such as to effectively impede the performance of job operation in a particular occupation for which they are hired. Now, there is also an additional requirement for an apprenticeship or a learnership in relation to PWDs. They must at least be 14 years of age. They must possess vocational aptitude and capacity for apprenticeship and must possess the ability to comprehend and follow oral and written instructions. An apprenticeship agreement is required to be entered into by the parties concerned in order to protect and also to manage expectation in relation to how PWD apprentice or learner may contribute to the entity or to the business of the party. Now, there are incentives granted to employers, as I mentioned, and we hope that more employers will be enticed to hire our PWDs considering this additional deduction for income tax purposes. Now, another aspect where a privilege may be granted to a PWD is in terms of education. The law provides that there should be access to quality education for learners with special needs. Learning institutions shall admit all learners with special needs, whether in academic, vocational, or technical courses and other training programs, except in the following instances. We'll just name a few. If the learning institutions have already accepted learnings with special needs, if learning institutions do not meet the criteria set by the Department of Education in relation to special education, or teachers training institutions are enjoined to include basic SPED courses at the undergraduate levels of education and in other related areas, or when teaching institutions offer scholarship program to SPED teachers in coordination with DepEd and other non-government agencies. Now, there may be a need to differentiate formal education and informal education in relation to PWDs. When it comes to formal education, learning institutions shall offer integrated education. That means that PWDs will be mixed with those who do not have impairments. Now, it's just that in order to ensure the quality education for PWDs, the learning institutions must have certain components in their curriculum, educational program, teaching methods, and services as follows. Now, if you have visual impairment, preparatory, elementary, and early secondary levels modified curriculum should include sensory training, special instruction in braille reading and writing, mathematics, orientation, mobility, music, and typing. There should be preparation for integration and mainstreaming that will be worked out in the early years of schooling at the elementary level to assure that the visually impaired children, just like other children with special needs, except those with mental retardation, are educated worth their non-handicapped peers to the fullest extent possible. And so exactly, there is a need for integration and mainstreaming. But there is a chance for the learning institution to initially prepare the PWDs before they get to be integrated to the mainstream learning. Now, for persons with hearing impairment, there should also be a modified curriculum available to them, which should be tailored to meet their educational needs. So the curriculum shall include special instruction in speech, speech reading, auditory training, and rhythm using total communication, multisensory, and other approaches. For persons with orthopedic handicaps, quality education shall be given in a manner as those in the regular education, except that school facilities and physical environment are required to comply with the accessibility law, and they should also be allowed to attend classes in the ground floors of the school buildings whenever possible. Their class schedule and other pertinent consideration should also be made to suit their learning requirements. For persons with mental retardation, modified curriculum should emphasize self-care, socialization, motor, pre-vocational, vocational, and other daily living skills. Now, for other types of learners with special needs, teaching strategies shall be creative, multidimensional, multisensorial, and shall involve active participation of the learners. Now, for other types of learners with special needs, especially those with behavior problems, including those with autism, those with learning disabilities, and those with multiple handicaps, their curriculum must be modified to include special activities and instructional techniques for the normalization of behavior, functions, and technical academic skills to prepare them for the world of work. For disabled gifted person, the curriculum must emphasize development of communication skills, positive self-concept, high-level abstract thinking, social skills, and independent living using creative teaching principles and interdisciplinary approaches. But in all of these that I've mentioned, it is very clear that there should be preparation for PWDs to be integrated to the mainstream educational system in the country. And in fact, in one seminars that we attended, in one of the seminars we attended with the Secretary of the Department of Education, Secretary Briones, she did mention that PWDs must be integrated in the mainstream educational system of the country. Now, as to non-formal education, alternative special delivery systems that shall complement formal education shall include community-based, church-based, hospital-based, and other non-school-based programs and services for learners with special needs. So this is when radio, TV, video, print, and other distance teaching approaches can be utilized to reach out to those who cannot avail of institution-based programs and services. So the participation of PWDs or persons with special needs, their parents, and the community in the delivery of the program must be enhanced, and volunteerism is highly encouraged. Now, there is also a financial assistance granted to economically marginalized and deserving students with special needs. It is specifically provided in the law itself that there should be assistance given to them. You just have to apply though with the Department of Education if you want to avail of this. But then, if there is a certain PWD that will enroll or their parents will enroll them in a certain educational institution, they can make inquiry with the school itself, and the school is required to give assistance and information in relation to this financial assistance made available to PWDs. Also provided under the law is that there should be at least one government-owned vocational and technical school in every province, that should offer special vocational and technical training program for disabled persons. So if you notice, it's every province, not every LGU. Okay, so it has to be emphasized. Although all LGUs are encouraged to provide facilities for education to our disabled persons, the law though make it or decided to limit the requirement of a government-owned vocational and technical school per province. Likewise, this is now provided under the expanded benefits to PWDs that educational assistance shall be granted to them to pursue primary, secondary, tertiary, post-tertiary, as well as vocational or technical education. In fact, the TESDA once asked the assistance of the National Council for Disabled Persons or National Council for Disabled Persons Affairs or Authority to give a wide awareness of this benefit, okay, to help them or to assist them in disseminating the information of educational assistance. So if you know of certain PWDs who may be interested in gaining vocational or technical skills, inquiries with the TESDA, okay, would be a good advice you can give them. Okay, so what are the available courses that may be granted to them under the TESDA program or their vocational program? Now, in the next field or aspect, in terms of health, it is provided that the National Health Program should be available to PWDs, specifically intended to prevent the disability prenatally or postnatally, recognition and early diagnosis of disability, and early rehabilitation of the disabled person. It has been recognized that early detection will lead to early intervention, which is the key to give our PWDs a functional life despite their disabilities. So that's why the law encourages early detection then, okay, so that the PWDs could remain functional in their later years. Also, there is free rehabilitation in government hospitals, but then it must be emphasized again that this free rehabilitation would be available only to marginalized PWDs. So there is emphasis on those who are economically challenged. Nonetheless, PWDs, they have free use of recreational or sports centers owned or operated by the government. And this one, there is no distinction made by the law. Okay, so any PWDs may request their LGUs if they have certain activities for recreation or sports. So that's in terms of health, but then I will discuss later on the new law which grants the PWDs automatic registration or coverage under PhilHealth. On auxiliary services, the law provides, and this is not exhaustive, I must say, but then these are the main auxiliary services made available to PWDs. A provision of specialized training activities designed to improve functional limitations of disabled persons related to communication skills. Now, you may be asking, to whom do we demand this benefit? It would be the LGUs who are required to trickle these benefits to PWDs. So you have to ask the Persons with Disabilities Affairs Office of the LGU to give you more information on what are the services made available to PWDs. Okay, but nonetheless, the law provides this general available auxiliary services. There should also be development among disabled persons of a positive self-image through the provision of counseling, orientation, and mobility, and strengthening the daily living capability, provision of family care services geared towards developing the capabilities of families to respond to the needs of disabled members of the family. And then there is this provision of a daycare services for disabled children who are in school age. So this one is rather very interesting because the law, after all, requires that LGU should provide a daycare service for our disabled children. So this one, perhaps we can coordinate closely with our LGUs if they are complying with this requirement. Now, on telecommunications, it is encouraged that TV stations shall provide sign language insets or subtitles in at least one newscast a day and special programs covering events of national significance. But then take note of the term use. The term use is encouraged. So that means we cannot demand. So it is at the option of the TV station in which newscast they will provide this language inset or sign language insets or subtitles, and which special programs they may likewise provide for such a benefit. Now, telephone companies are likewise encouraged to install special telephones for the hearing impaired. Okay, but considering the availability of text messaging now in our cell phones, so this may not be much of an issue. There should also be free postal charges on articles, literatures, aids, and orthopedic devices for personal use. So take note, you can have free delivery of these materials, okay, if you are a PWD, granting that it is for personal use. Okay, if you intend to sell it to other people, so that's a different matter. You may not demand free postal charges. But then it's not so convenient to actually make use of our post office. It may be instead convenient to use private carriers. It gets to you faster. Okay, but nonetheless, if you make use of our postal office for the delivery of these articles to you or these other materials, it will be free. You can demand that it be free. Okay, but you just have to prove though that you are a PWD who will be using it for your personal purpose. In terms of accessibility, there is a requirement for a barrier-free environment, but this is in consonance with the requirement of the accessibility law. Okay, so ramps should be provided. There should be facilities that allow the PWDs to get around certain malls or certain other government offices, in fact. So if you notice, if you go to the malls, there are always ramps there. There are always railings. That's intended to benefit the PWDs. There are also certain establishments that made it more convenient for PWDs by providing elevators, okay, in case of high-rise buildings. So in addition to this, there should be access to public transport facilities through provision and designation of the number of seats for PWDs and placement of pertinent audiovisual aids. If you notice on public transport, there's always this sticker there's this sticker of a person on a wheelchair. It looks like that type of image. That is actually pursuant to the accessibility law, that the front seat of a public transport is to be reserved for persons with disabilities. So if you are seated in the front seat and there is a PWD who wish to get in, you may have to excuse yourself. You have to give your seat to the PWD because that's actually reserved for them. Okay. On political and civil rights, they can have assistance in voting. So they get to choose. It's not the COMELEC personnel who will choose for them who gets to be their assistant. It's the choice of the PWD. So when ever they're voting, but there is a requirement of the person assisting to state under oath that he will comply with the choices of the PWD. They also have the right to assemble, so they can rally if they want to raise their grievances to government or certain institutions. They likewise have the right to organize themselves. So if they want to have a unified voice in terms of raising their causes, then it may be best that they organize. I just want to emphasize as well that there should be express lanes in all commercial and government establishments for PWDs. And if ever there's no such express lanes, they should still be given priority. This one should be emphasized so that people also will understand and will not get irritated whenever there is a PWD who is being prioritized. It's because the law itself provided for such benefit. And take note, it applies not only to government establishments, but all commercial establishments as well. So let's be patient then whenever we are in a queue and we see that there is a person who gets ahead of us despite having lined too long already under the heat of the sun. We just have to realize that the law did give PWDs certain priorities. Let's not be too quick in judging, especially if you see a person who is young and who gets the priority. For all you know, that person may be a PWD. Now, these are the additional privileges, a 20% discount and a VAT exemption. The train law, which amended much of the individual income taxation clauses in our tax code, already emphasized as well, specified in the tax code itself, that PWDs are entitled to VAT exemption. So any goods or services that relate to these type of services and goods as well will be entitled to VAT exemption, okay, in addition to their 20% discount. So from lodging establishments, restaurants, and recreation centers, medicines and foods for special medical purposes of PWDs, medical and dental services, diagnostic and laboratory fees, and professional fees of the attending doctors, domestic, emphasis on the domestic, land, sea, and air travel, and then funeral and burial services for PWDs. For this last item, it must be the PWD who has to avail of the funeral, meaning he's the decedent. Okay, not the, because for all you know, you may be thinking, let's have our PWD family member avail of the funeral services, okay, in burying probably another family member so that they can get the 20% discount or VAT exemption. No, this has been implemented and it is made to understand that this particular services to be entitled to a 20% discount and VAT exemption, the decedent must be the PWD. Now, this is what I mentioned, the latest benefit granted to PWDs, the automatic PhilHealth coverage. So premium contributions for all PWDs will now be paid by the national government. However, if the PWD is a member, if the PWD is part of a formal economy, meaning he is employed, then it shall be shared equally by the employer and the national government, whatever is the supposed premium due to PhilHealth. Okay? So for PWDs who are not employed at all in a formal setup, then national government will pay for their premium. For those who are employed in a formal economy, shared by the employer and the national government. How does registration with PhilHealth being facilitated? You have to be registered with your PDAO. And PDAO will have to update their list because the basis of PhilHealth for coverage is the Philippine Registry for Persons with Disabilities. And that particular list is based on the list given by the respective LGUs under the PDAO. So if you want to have this particular coverage, it is best that you register, ensure that you are registered with your PDAO, okay, so that you will be part of the Philippine registry. Certain non-hospital centers may avail of this PhilHealth privileges, meaning if you are providing services, medical services to PWDs, they can avail of their PhilHealth, granting that that non-hospital center is accredited by the DOH. So those who would like to explore the PhilHealth benefits of PWDs and who, in relation to the medical services that they provide to them, so you may want to inquire with the Department of Health what are the requirements for accreditation, so that when you provide the services to PWDs, you can deduct already the the PhilHealth coverage. There is a special PWD PhilHealth coverage. They have their own set of benefits, okay, separate from those without disabilities. Now, in relation to our responses, approaches, and the way we deal with persons with disabilities, there is already a law which specifically provided their deliverance from public ridicule. And by public ridicule, we mean an act of making fun or contemptuous imitating or making mockery of persons with disability, whether in writing or in words or in action, due to their impairment. There are actually certain examples provided by the implementing rules and regulation when it comes to this public ridicule, making fun of a person on account of his or her disability, even through jokes in a manner that is degrading, resulting to the embarrassment of the person with disability in front of two or more persons. Making mockery of a person with disability, whether oral or in writing, imitating a person with disability in public gatherings, stage shows, carnivals, television shows, broadcast media, and other forms of entertainment that are offensive to the rights and dignity of persons with disability or other similar acts. Take note that it is not up to us to determine whether they are offended by our action. It is actually on the part of the PWDs who will determine whether they get offended. So if our action, we are not so sure if our action will offend them, might as well not do the act. Another prohibited act against PWDs is vilification. And vilification is defined as the utterance of slanderous and abusive statement against a person with disability, such as but not limited to calling a person by his disability in public which results to humiliation. I remember when I was still young, I always hear this young children also, whenever they see a kimpang, they usually call kimpang, or whenever you say you taunt the person with disability, buta, bungol, all these other or saying buang. So all those things when uttered will amount to vilification if it humiliates the PWD. And take note, the feeling of humiliation is not for us to determine, but for the PWD to discern. So if he thinks that he has been humiliated despite you not intending it, then you may run the risk of being penalized for this act. Using the disability of a person as an example in a manner that is embarrassing and humiliating to the dignity of persons with disability is likewise considered vilification. So we should then avoid making use of persons with disabilities as examples in raising a point if it will just amount to humiliating them. So, an activity in public which incites hatred towards or serious contempt for or severe ridicule of persons with disabilities would also fall under vilification. Now, why should we be mindful of that? Because the penalties may a bit hefty. Okay? For first violation, you can get a fine of 50,000 to 100,000 and even imprisonment of not less than 6 months to not more than 2 years at the discretion of the court. For any subsequent violation, then you will be penalized for not less than 100,000 but not exceeding 200,000, or imprisonment for not less than 2 years but not more than 6 years, still at the discretion of the court. Now, upon filing of an appropriate complaint and after due notice and hearing, authorities may cause the cancellation or revocation of a business permit to operate, franchise, and other similar privileges granted to any business entity that fails to abide by the provision of this act. So, when you own a business and you do not grant the PWDs their entitlement to discounts and VAT exemptions, then you will run the risk of being closed should they file a case against your business. So that summarizes my view of the rights and privileges of PWDs, and I thank you for your time and indulgence. I'm now open for any questions that you may have. For the benefit of all, I will be, just wait for a while after the Q&A. I will post in the group chat my presentation this afternoon. Okay, so everyone can get a copy. So you can download it before we close the virtual room. Okay, so I will give you a copy of this presentation. If you are shy to enunciate your queries, feel free to raise them through the group chat. I will read them. Okay. I remember. Oh, okay. I have to pay for my. We have a question here from Miss Joanne. I'm a member of PhilHealth, so do I have to pay for my dependents? The PhilHealth coverage is only available to the PWD itself. So if you needed to pay for your PhilHealth, for the PhilHealth coverage of your dependents, and they are not PWDs, you will be required to pay it yourself, and not the national government or not your employer together with the government. So if I understand the question right, so for your dependents and they are not PWDs, you will have to pay for your PhilHealth coverage. So there is another question here. What specific medical conditions and mental issues qualify as disabilities? Well, the usual a medical condition that can qualify you as disabled would be cancer. If you are a diabetic, even hypertension can qualify, granting that your doctor will provide a certification that it is prolonged. Okay, so those can qualify. Mental issues relating to disabilities, it is possible for a depressed person to actually qualify as a PWD, granting that there is a certification from the doctor of the seriousness of his condition.
Another question from Edward Dante from the Cebu. we send kids with congenital heart defect to Manila. They have PWD ID. Who will be eligible for PWD discount? The family or just the child?
The law is specific, and even the implementing rules and regulations, that it is only limited to the PWD. It does not include the family though. So maybe we can push for certain reforms in our law that we should include family members, especially those who are marginalized. The discount is only available to the PWD itself. Dr. Michael Pilago is raising his hand. Yes, Doc Mike.
Yes, attorney, good morning, good afternoon, by
Good
the way.
afternoon, Doc. Thank you
And
for
also to our,
attending.
yes, and also to our active participants who are still here, listening from you. No, by the way, I am representing the PIDA office of the LGU of Mandawi City.
Yes, Doc.
I'm very grateful, no, learning more about you, about laws, about persons with disabilities. Now, my concern is that can we stop your service if possible in case there is violation of PWDs, and then these PWDs like I, who is also PWD, need assistance, a legal assistance to pursue our cause of actions in case there is really a palpable violation of PWD rights as well as denial of our privileges.
Incidentally, Doc, I am a legal consultant to the city of Mandaue, so you can really avail of my services. You can raise your inquiries to me personally or through the office of the mayor asking for my legal assistance in relation to your concern. So
Yes,
I'm
yes,
open to give the assistance that you
yes.
need.
Because actually, attorney, our office, the PIDAW, is the first office, no? I'm proud to say nga, is the first office nga na organized and uh, has kining officers that really man this office, no? So thank you kayo, attorney, for the informative, and thank you also for your commitment to our sector persons with disability.
Okay, thank you as well, Doc. There is a very interesting question here on the penalty to non-PWD who takes advantage of the privileges. The law did not actually specify. However, if you availed of the privileges by making use of an identification card that is supposedly issued by the local government unit, then that will amount to falsification of public document, which is actually a criminal act, and you can be incarcerated for it if you're availing of the privileges that you are not entitled to. But granting, again, that you made use of a falsified document, it will really amount to falsification of public document if you got an identification card by misrepresenting certain information to the government office. Um, I'm a diabetic. Can I be a PW? Yes, a diabetic can be a PWD. You just have to get your certification from your doctor as to how the seriousness of your condition for you to amount to PWD. Again, you present your certificate before the person with disability affairs office of the LGU concerned. Okay. Okay. There. Okay, so Ms. Aina Hubahib, I've just read your statement here, and I'm glad that this afternoon's affair has given you enlightenment as to the needs of your son. True, a child with autism is a PWD, and he is entitled to automatic coverage of PhilHealth.
How can we avail of the financial assistance?
The, I, okay. Financial, you have to inquire first with the requirements from your PDAO, the LGU. But off the bat, there is a requirement for accreditation with the Department of Health if it relates to medical services. But in general, financial assistance that you may require, the PDAO would be the best office to tell you what are their requirements for you to avail of it.
If a PWD is a government issued PWD card, can you
Um,
automatically?
Okay, just for a while, let me just answer this question on the effectivity of the PhilHealth coverage law. It's already effective. They issued the implementing rules last February 2020. So there should be application of the law already. So if the government issued PW card, can you click on? Yes, so the government issued PW card will qualify you for PhilHealth, not PhilHealth benefits yet, but you have to inquire with PhilHealth if you are part of the Philippine Registry of PWDs. But considering that you have the PW card, most likely you are part of the registry. So it is best that you inquire with PhilHealth on your coverage. Okay, but if ever they're saying that it's not yet effective, it is already effective. Okay, in fact, they're only given 3 months from the time the law was enacted in 2019, and it was in February 2019 that the law was enacted, and they've issued the implementing rules and regulation last February 2020. So there should be no reason for them to deny your privilege under the law.
What are the penalties in
Business establishment not on. So let me just repeat that. Let me show you again the slide. So these are the penalties that will be imposed in establishment not honoring PWD cards. So you can better if you ask the assistance of the PDAO of your LGU so that your concern will be given a semblance of legitimacy, although it's not really a requirement, but it's best because they have strong influence on these establishments. Okay, so it's best if you coordinate with your PDAO in case of business establishments not honoring your PWD card.
your existing day?
Okay, there's a question if all cancer patients are considered PWD. It will have to depend on the seriousness of your condition. Okay, but most likely, you can be a PWD if you have cancer. Is there any existing day centers here in Cebu for
Special day, is there a special day?
Personally, I do not know of a particular day for children with disabilities, but every January we celebrate Autism Month. We commemorate that. We commemorate our advocacy every January. We raise more. We raise awareness more than stronger during that month, so we can push for a special day for a center for children with disabilities. Then, okay, to give services or to offer services to our children with
Yeah,
disabilities.
can I have a follow-up question on that? That was my question.
Yes, Attorney
Evelyn.
Evelyn.
Hi.
I
I was struck by the importance of this provision because, as you said, as far as
daycare
you,
center niya.
yeah, as
I
far
got
as
this
you
wrong.
know, there is none. But since it is in the law, can we push for the establishment of a daycare center in the local government unit, considering that when this law was passed, there's supposed to be a budget for that?
You're right, Attorney Evelyn. Indeed, we can push for a daycare center. We can raise our concern first and foremost to our PDAO why they are not insisting
Yeah.
on the creation of this daycare center, and then to our to the head of the LGU concern as well. Okay, but
Thank
you're
you.
right. We can push for it. We can raise
Thank you.
such costs.
Thank you.
Okay, Attorney.
PWD is also senior citizen.
You can only use a single discount. It's also provided under the PWD law that there cannot be double discount availment.
It's a free parking from both private and public establishments.
Given to people.
Yes.
It's not a specific provision under the law to grant free parking, but our ordinances in LGUs usually grant that privilege.
3 hours.
Okay, so you can avail of free parking, but it will have to depend on the LGU concerned if there is that ordinance, because the law did not specify free parking.
3 hours.
Okay, are DSW staff well versed with the policies? I suppose there is a presumption of regularity of public function, so I hope that they are well versed in the policy for issuance of PW card with respect to cancer patients. But if ever they have none, so maybe we can make an inquiry specifically to the SWD to if ever there has been an issue with regard to a cancer patient who was not issued a PWD card. So our organization, RCC Bufente, can give the necessary assistance. Just raise it to us.
Experience in one pharmacy.
What is the law to put a validity period? Really only from the date of issuance is really what is in the law. Actually, there's no specific validity period for the ID, but that is also necessary for purposes of regulation. Because for all you know, after 3 years, you may have already improved yourself, especially if your medical condition is no longer there or no longer exists. So that's why they provide for a validity period of the ID for purposes of regulation. In one of the parts, PWI was not because they don't cover cancer patients, or I am a breast cancer survivor, sir. I feel so done ashamed. Well, actually, they do not honor. It's not for them to deny when you have presented a PWD ID, because the law did not actually make a distinction as to what type of PWD can avail of a discount. For as long as you have that PWD ID, it should be honored by any establishment.
And also the booklet.
Okay, you must bring with you
The booklet.
a booklet if ever you have one. But that if your LGU provides a booklet for PWDs. I know for senior citizen they have booklets, but for PWDs, I'm not so sure if the LGU also provide for such booklet. But if they do provide that, then you have to bring it as well and present it when you buy your medicine. DepEd and shared mandates the inclusive and requirements. The legislation should follow such as what if it does not have these persons? So can they be penalized if they deny admission of these learners with special needs? Actually, not all institutions may be able to provide the necessary needs for persons with disabilities, and that has to be accepted also by the public. But it should not be an outright denial of admission. There should be an advice given to the parents of the learner with special needs. And considering that there is indeed a requirement for integration, the learning institution involved will have to justify before DepEd why they cannot accept the learner with special needs. So in this case, I don't want to say that they should be penalized right away, but you may want to raise the matter to DepEd. Okay? Because it's really accepted also. It's not difficult to admit that not all institutions are capable. Where can you avail a low-cost speech? Okay, this is a very nice question, but I may have to get back to you on this, on where you may avail of a low-cost speech therapy. Maybe if anyone in the participants would know this, they can also answer. But personally, I do not know of a low-cost speech therapy. But we'll try to make our own research and inquiry, and we will get back to you on this. If you can place your email address in the group chat, and we will take note of your concern. Provide a booklet. Okay, so they do provide a booklet for PWDs as well. about these people who are now cancer free, but they have to take medications. Are they about very good question. If you're already cancer free, um, there is a very low possibility that you may qualify for PWD because you have to establish long-term impairment of your physiological and anatomical functions. So if you're already cancer-free, it may be difficult to advance that you are still impaired. So my position is that it's not it's difficult for you to qualify. Okay? But this has to be taken on a case-to-case basis because you may be cancer-free, but there are certain conditions that will still that may consider you other health condition that may consider you as being physically impaired. But my position is that it's really difficult. You may have low qualification to be a PWD if ever. There is a raised hand from okay, there's no specific name, but yes1 MTIS, you recognize? If you have a question, the number one sign on his profile or her profile. So what's the question? One MTIS underscore 401. So that's so this Disney Throne at gmail.com, you recognize. Yeah, we acknowledge receipt of your email. Yes, sir. How can I help you, sir? You should ask to unmute. Sir, you raise your hand. I'm sorry, but there is no name, sir, so I cannot call you by your name. But if you're raising your hand, you are recognized. That's your question, sir? Yeah. See if I lower your hand, you still have your question. That's great. Okay. Oh, while waiting for everyone, for other people to raise their questions, I will post here a copy of my presentation so you can have a copy of this. Okay, so I already sent it in the chat room. So it seems that there are no other questions. And so with that, I thank you for your time and indulgence.
So, thank you very much to our distinguished guest speaker, Attorney Bernardino Amago IV. It was truly a very relevant talk about the rights and privileges of the PWDs in celebration of the 43rd National Disability Prevention and Rehabilitation Week. At this juncture, I would like to thank our sponsors and partners of this webinar, Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente, I Can Serve Foundation Cebu, Reach Center, and Parents Reach Foundation Incorporated. Thank you so much again to Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente, I Can Serve Foundation Cebu, and Reach Center and Parents Reach Foundation Incorporated. thank you very much also to some of the, a lot of groups, organizations to join, Santa International, the I Can Serve, the REACH. Then we also have the JCI and all also from Rotary, different clubs. So thank you so much for being here. We'd like to also thank architect, our very own, past president June Torres for this beautiful, venue that we are here right now. We're all gathered. Thank you very much. So that is for you. Thank you very much, and for all your questions. If you need to send more questions, you can send it to our email, or you can go to our FB page and post your questions to us. Okay. Now, this afternoon was indeed an eye opener for all of us, and the very useful information that will truly help and guide everyone in taking care of the rights and privileges of our brothers and sisters with functional difficulty, or what you call PWD. To close this great webinar is our energetic Rotary Club of Cebu Fuentes Secretary, Jose Marie Ponce. Okay, for our closing. Again, we would like to give our email address. What's our email address? You can send your questions, or you have additional questions to ask, please.
Send it through the group chat.
Okay. So, okay, we are experiencing this right now on a different field. So there's, the technical glitches we sometimes encounter, but these are just part of the new normal. And we thank you for your patience and understanding. Now, if we are unable to get hold of Secretary Jomar Ponce because of some technical glitches, I would like to ask our speaker if he can give his closing remarks, being also the president of the Rotary Club of Cebu Fuente. Thank you.
Okay, again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for supporting our activity this afternoon, for your attendance, and I do hope it has been worthwhile for all of you, as it has been for me. So we hope to see you in our other activities in the coming months, and we will continue to raise awareness on the rights of persons with disabilities. So thank you so much, and have a nice day ahead of you.
Okay, can we have picture?
So let's have a photo op so we can immortalize your attendance this afternoon.
Okay. Okay, ready? Wait now. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. Page 2. 1, 2, 3, smile. Page 3. 1, 2, 3, smile. Page 4. 1, 2, 3, smile. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am Vicky Garcia and the rest of Zonta 2 members, thank you so much for your attendance and support.
Yes.
Every network has helped my
Autism
Autism
Society
Society
Philippines,
Philippines, thank you
thank you.
also.
And then, of course, for one